welcome to Traditional Painting the Digital Way. This is where I use digital painting apps to teach traditional painting techniques. This is part 4 of my Toy Sheep series, and in this video we're going to work on refining the details on the sheep and work a little bit on the trunk. If you want to follow along with traditional materials such as acrylic, check out part 1 in this series where I have a list of all the canvas and the brushes and the paint that I use. We're going to be using Infinite Painter for Android, and I'm going to go ahead and pick the Leo brush and start working a little bit on the trunk. So I want kind of a light tan color here, and if you're following along traditionally, you can use burnt sienna with white acrylic gesso, maybe throw in a little bit of cadmium orange. And you can use your round number 3 brush or your flat number 6 brush. And I just kind of want a little bit of a lighter color on the top of the trunk. Now, we want the sides to look a little bit darker. And so here I'm using some darker brown colors. And I'm using that for the straps that are on the trunk. And also we're going to be showing the line where the trunk opens as well, and we'll just use that brown color. And if you're following along with your acrylics, probably burnt umber would be a good choice. And I'm just trying to kind of get the angle of the edges on the box right. And I'm sketching in a little bit where the clasp and the lock of the trunk is going to be right here. I'm just kind of showing where things are going to be right now. I'm not refining real big on the trunk. And then I kind of wanted to play around with some textures on the sheep because I want him to be fuzzy looking. You want to give him sort of a fuzzy look. And so I went ahead and picked sort of a texture that would make the brushes react like they're kind of on a medium surface type of a canvas. And here I'm just kind of working on the shadows on his face and using a darker brown and using the Leo brush for it and trying to blend it in. And I'm using the smudge tool set on the Leo brush, or the Blackwell brush will work well. And I'm also using the Angelo brush. And you can go ahead into the settings here and just kind of work with the dilution and the mix-in rate, and that helps it blend in better. And so I was just playing around with that, playing around with the texture. If you increase the texture, that will make it smudge more with the paintbrush category. And that's what I'm trying to do here, is just kind of get a smudge look here on the side of his face and soften the brush strokes here and just kind of make soft edges. And you can use the Blackwell brush for this on the settings for the smudge brush, because it's kind of a pencil is what it, and it gives it a kind of a grainy look, but it also gives it a fuzzy look, which is what we want because this is a sheep, and so we want a real fuzzy look for him. And I'm just kind of working on adding some highlights there. And like I said, the light source is going to be a night light or just kind of a small lamp in a kid's room. So we don't want a big harsh looking light source. We just kind of want soft shadows and soft highlights for this. And I'm using a lighter brown color, and you can probably take burnt umber and mix it with white acrylic gesso and just get a really light tan color if you're following along with your acrylics. And I'm just kind of trying to use the burnt umber for the shadow as well on his face and just softening the edges. I don't want any harsh lines too much. You can have a little bit of a line for his nose and the mouth. And also for the eyes, you want a black color. And if you're following along traditionally, you can use blue and brown together, and that will give you a black color. And then here I'm using the Pollock brush just to give it kind of a fuzzy look for stomach and his head here. And if you're following along traditionally, you can use a scumbling stroke. Take your number 6 flat or your number 8 filbert or something and just kind of give it some rough strokes and tap the end of the brush on your canvas and just make the bristles splay out, and it will give you kind of a rough stroke there for the wool look that you want on the sheep. And then here I'm just working on his hooves, and of course it's a plush toy, so his hooves are actually going to be soft, so you would still keep the soft edges here. And I had to erase the line bug that we have in Infinite Painter. Like I said in my previous video, I think it's been fixed in the previous versions of the beta. And since I'm a beta tester, I get to work out all these things, and we report them to Sean Brakefield, the inventor of this app, and he works on it and tries to get rid of all the bugs. And here I'm just adding a little bit of some lighter brown colors, just different shades of brown for his hooves. And you can use a burnt umber color with white acrylic gesso, throw in a little bit of orange, maybe some cadmium red, and mix them all together with a lot of white, and that will give you these shades of brown for his hooves and his wool. And then here I'm working on his nightcap, and you can probably use phthalo yellow green and ultramarine blue if you're following along with your acrylics, and throw in a lot of white acrylic gesso. We want kind of a turquoise sort of a color, but maybe leaning towards blue a little bit more than green. And here I'm just using the Leo brush and trying to smudge it in and sort of blend it in, blend the edges of the shadows into the highlight colors here. And you can just add more light to your, or more white to your blue mixture to get the highlight colors of his hat. And I just kind of want to smudge it, and I'm using the Blackwell brush to smudge it and smooth in the colors of the nightcap, and just working on the shape of it around his face and putting the darker blue there for the shadow that would be on the left side of his face here, and just kind of smoothing it out and working on the shape of the end of the hat. And you just kind of want to keep it soft because the nightcap is supposed to be really soft, and of course it is since it's a plush toy. And I'm just kind of working on putting the shadow on the left side here and then blending the edge. And again, we want soft edges on this toy because it's a plush toy. We don't want it to look like it's plastic. We want really soft edges for it, so everything that you do needs to be kind of smudged in. And if you want this look when you're painting with your traditional materials, smudge it with a paper towel or your finger, just whatever you're comfortable using. And then here I'm just adding some more wool around the nightcap and around his face, and I'm using the Pollock brush there. And again, you can use your rough scumbly strokes if you're following along traditionally. And then you want to go ahead and work a little bit more on his I guess legs. They're not really arms, his front legs. And you can use the Julian brush, which is in the pastels and chalk category, to give it a soft edge too. And also around his face there, we want a little bit darker to add a little bit more defining details around his face. So you can use a darker brown if you're following on traditionally, a burnt umber color. And then also throw in a little bit of some cadmium orange, just kind of a lighter brown, but almost sort of an orange color, just for some variation in his face and on the wool so that it doesn't look flat. We want it to have pockets of dark and light on his belly and also on his face and just around on his front legs. And we just kind of want to give it a little bit of a three-dimensional look. This will help do that by adding the different pockets of dark and light and make it look like it's a plush toy. And then here I'm working on the trunk again, and I'm adding a highlight color, again a light tan color. And I just want to go ahead and sort of work again on the angles of the trunk and try to get them a little bit more parallel with each other. And I'm putting a little bit of a darker color on the left side again because it's going to be more in shadow from the night light. But we want kind of a soft shadow here. We don't want a really harsh shadow because the light source is going to be soft, so we also want a soft shadow look. And so you can use burnt sienna, burnt umber, if you're following along with your acrylics. And then here I'm using the straight line tool. This is a different straight line tool in Infinite Painter. This is where you can actually use it to draw different angles. And so I'm trying to line up the two edges of the box and make them parallel. And you can do that with this tool. It's kind of, it's sort of sensitive, so you have to get it just right. But as you can see, you can pull it down, and the red line will show you where you're drawing. And so you can draw on the right side of the box and then pull the line down and use the red line guide, and it will show you the edge on the left side of the box. And so your guide is still lined up with the other angle, and then you can go ahead and get the angle for the other side. And it works out really well, and that's really helpful. And you can use a ruler if you're following along traditionally to do this effect. So this is the end of part 4 of my toy sheep series. And in part 5, we're going to keep working on the sheep and also work a little bit more on the trunk. So if you want to see that, hit that subscribe button. And thanks everybody for watching. Thank you so much for your support. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments down below, and I will catch you later.